Welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me here today. Today I'm going to be sharing with you part 3 of that 5-part video series I started about English learners. Now part 3 is all about visual aids and why they're important in the classroom. Now I know that most of you are probably already using visual aids, so I hope there's something new that I can share with you today that can help support your English learners in the classroom. Now visual aids come in all different forms. A visual aid can be something as simple as a picture that you share in the classroom, or it can be something like a video clip that you play to help students conceptualize or understand a big idea that you're teaching as well. Now, for teaching English learners, it's really important that you provide a variety of resources that they are able to visually see to help them develop these new concepts of knowledge or to transfer what we call labels from one language over into the new language. Now, for a student who is a newcomer, they are overwhelmed by the amount of English that they are having to experience throughout the school day. For this particular student, they are probably, this is the only place in their life where they speak English all day long, or they listen to people speak in English all day long. And this can become really overwhelming for them. So naturally, students who are English learners really struggle with auditory processing because there's so much language coming at them that they are unfamiliar with that it causes them to just shut down or just feel overwhelmed. So if we can provide them that support with those visual aids, it lowers down that affective filter and lessens the amount of frustration that these students are feeling in the class and gives them a little bit more confidence because they may in fact already know a little bit about this concept. I think visual aids are probably the easiest kind of support to use in the classroom because it's really simple to show a picture of the idea, the vocabulary word, the story, a character in a story. It's really simple to just show a picture. It does seem like it's kind of the easiest support that you can use in the class for your English learners. Visual supports also can serve as language cues to students to help direct them in accessing their prior knowledge about an idea or concept that you're teaching. So for instance, if you're introducing a lesson about nouns and the student is a newcomer and they might not understand what the word noun means, and you tell them, oh, it's just a person, place, or thing or idea, they might not understand that because some of those words might be challenging or just words they don't really conceptually understand. So if you give them pictures of physical objects that are things, that are people, that are places, that are ideas, that will help them begin to make sense of the difference between a verb, which is an action like running, or house, which is a noun. It's just like a place that you live in. So those visual aids are really, really helpful to English learners. Now to make it easier just to like show you how I use visual aids, I'm going to share with you a bunch of pictures that I've taken in my classroom or other teachers' classrooms of some ways you can use visual aids in your classroom.
Here's a picture of the bulletin board in the back of the classroom that we used for Workshop 1 in Read 180. I know that it's not very common for secondary level teachers to use bulletin boards in their classrooms, but they are used. I have used them all the way into 11th grade ELD and even with my 9th grade honors students in the private school where I taught. I found a lot of success with bulletin boards, and students have really used them to access content throughout the units we are studying. So for this bulletin board you see in front of you, this workshop was all about taking a stand and understanding some basic concepts of social justice. On the bulletin board, you'll see visuals of the individuals that we read about in the unit, important concepts defined like justice, reminders of how to apply specific reading skills that we were learning, like context clues and prefixes, copies of class notes that we took in class, and of course important vocabulary words were defined up here. Now, I personally didn't put pictures of the vocab words on the bulletin board just because students already have the pictures in their Read 180 notebook, so I just didn't see the need to double up on that, plus I really wanted to save the space. We also have the Declaration of Human Rights for Children in both the full text and the child-friendly language. Now, all of these are visual supports that my students frequently referred to in the classroom. I saw students go back there to check meanings of words, sit back there to copy notes if they were absent, or reading the rights for children because they were interesting. Now, referring to activists during class discussions, it made it easier to look back at the picture and track where the conversation was because we were learning about so many individuals. So they could look back at the kid who's holding the trophy and say, oh, yeah, that one is Kez Valdez. And then they would be able to access that schema and organize that information in their head for discussions and then fully engage and participate in the discussion. Now, at the beginning of the unit, the board started out very bare, but we added to it over time as the unit progressed and students really tracked with these concepts that we were learning. It was really sad the day I had to take it down. Another example of visual aids I have in my classroom are these anchor charts. When I introduce a new concept to students, I always create an anchor chart that we can refer to throughout our unit of study. I usually pin these in the back of the classroom, one on top of the other, and then pull out the one that we need for that day if we're referring back to it or I'm reteaching a skill. Students also know that they're able to go back to the charts, flip through them, and look at the lesson notes when they need them. I frequently see students flipping through these, especially when they're in the writing zone from Read 180, because there's just a lot of posters with tips about writing and improving writing. I do make these with my students during class so they're familiar to the students and they understand what each of these ideas mean or the notes mean on the poster. Now notice that the anchor chart on the left not only has the steps outlined for how to cite evidence, but also some pictures to help cue that background knowledge for students so that they can access it and really apply it to what they're working on. These visual aids actually come from another teacher's classroom. She had this anchor chart on the left hanging in her classroom. This was created during a lesson that she had done with students about contractions. And it was still up on the board even though it had been taught earlier in the week. Now, she kept it up there so that students could refer to it throughout the subsequent or the follow-up lesson she was teaching. Obviously here they're working on contractions, but having this visual cue up here helps students remember how to conjugate the verb correctly that they were working on in the English language. Now, when students are speaking or writing, it just takes a quick look up to the board to choose which contraction was correct, and then they could go back to whichever oral or written activity they were working on. Now, on the right, you see a visual support, which is actually called an observation chart. I don't want to go into too much detail about this because the observation chart gets its own video, but the observation chart is an excellent tool for accessing or building background knowledge with students. Basically what you do is the teacher tapes or glues a picture onto a poster and then students make observations or ask questions in writing on the poster around it. Then you do a follow-up discussion about the photographs and what students saw or what they wondered. They're really helpful to keep hanging up in the classroom or at least accessible to students so that you can help them to continue build upon that background knowledge and or even access that schema that they might already have about the topic. Here I just wanted to show you that visual aids can be used for any student and really any purpose. So on the left I do have a poster of academic discourse, what it is and what it is not, which is a really helpful tool for English learners defining what something is and is not, by the way. But these were my 9th grade honors English students, and for them having this poster up here made it really easy to refer back to during our lessons so that we could track with what we were learning. In the middle was our classroom rules poster that I had last year. I do have a new one up this year, but see, the classroom rules poster, it helps everyone with the visual aids. I can refer back to if a student isn't following directions and help them understand why they got the consequence that they got. And then on the right is a poster of the Read 180 books that students can choose from. I know it's just like a little sliver of it. It's a big poster up on the wall, but having that visual aid for my Read 180 students made it really easy so that they could just go and look at all the books and the Lexile levels, and then they could quickly go to the library, and it really saved a lot of time. Plus it had really beautiful pictures to get them excited about what they were reading.
Now, like I said, I know that many of you are already using visual aids, so please comment down below and share how are you using visual aids in your classroom to support English learners, or not just English learners, but all your students in your classroom as well. And if you have any questions or suggestions for how we can improve visual aids in supporting the English learners, please leave that down below in the comments as well. Thanks for joining me here. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss the 4th video in the video series. Have a great day.